Welcome back, everyone. How are you all doing today? We're just going to get right into this. So recently there's been a lot of discussion on both Eruption and Dead Hard, and which one is worse, which one is more overpowered than the other, and which one really needs to be nerfed over the other, and honestly, it's just a lot of noise. The real answer is both perks need to be nerfed. Both of them do. Both perks are really busted, and we're going to get into that. Let's start with the perk that is arguably the most overpowered, and that would be Eruption. Eruption is by far the most overpowered perk, and it's only because of the buffs that it received back in patch 6.1.0. For those of you who don't remember, it was buffed in that it increased the length of time where survivors suffered the incapacitated status, and it also increased the amount of regression that was done to generators. This was done in order to make the perk more appealing as a means of shaking up the old killer meta for perks. And shake up the meta it did, because Eruption is now a more meta perk than it ever was in the past. The issue when approaching the topic of Eruption is that Eruption is a high skill, high reward perk. This is a perk that requires killers to go out of their way to stop and kick generators, and then only rewards them whenever they successfully down a survivor. By itself, this is not a bad thing, and the buffs were actually kind of warranted because the perk itself was seeing almost zero use and really no value in using the perk by itself. The problem with Eruption is that it is being stacked with other perks. So how do you fix a perk that is really only being modified into being overpowered by other perks? Well, that one's easy. For starters, you reverse the buffs that you gave the perk in the first place, and I would go further and say nerf the perk. You don't have to nerf it too hard, from its original state, but nerf it a little more. Instead of it being a 16-second at the highest tier incapacitation for being hit with Eruption, make it a 10-second. That way it's not overly oppressive. It can still work in tandem with other perks, but now it doesn't become as devastating or as overpowered, really. This would make Eruption more of an auxiliary perk, much in the same way that Botany Knowledge is an auxiliary perk. Sure, Botany Knowledge is useful, but it's really only good when it's paired with other healing perks. And in that same way, Eruption, if these changes that I mentioned were implemented, would be reduced to this kind of status. It would really only be good when paired with other gen kick perks. It wouldn't be there to be a dominant perk, but it would augment the effects of the other perks, making them stronger as well, but not to the point of being oppressive. Now on to the topic of Dead Hard. So how do we fix the problem that is Dead Hard? And frankly, it is a problem. Well, that's easy. You remove it. And before anyone starts clutching their pearls and having their fainting spells, or hemming and hawing, or throwing themselves on the ground and throwing tantrums and fits over me saying such, let's be honest here. Dead Hard is a perk that never should have existed. Unlike perks like Eruption, which reward a killer for playing well, Dead Hard is a perk that rewards survivors for playing poorly. Oh no, I messed up in this chase. Push E to win. There's a reason why that perk has the nickname, Push E to Win. Because that's all it is. It doesn't matter how high skill you make the Push E to Win button. It just rewards survivors for playing badly, and it punishes killers for playing well. This is a perk that, honestly, never should have existed. And although, yes, dealing with constant sprint bursts are annoying enough, that's still much higher skill than Push E to Win. The survivors in this case aren't being rewarded for playing badly. They can play strategically around Sprint Burst, even though Sprint Burst is a pretty low skill perk to use. Dead Hard might be higher skill nowadays, but it still is only high skill after you demonstrate you have low skill. So, really, there shouldn't be a controversy here. Dead Hard should not exist. At all. And that's really it. I mean, we could go into the history of where Eruption came from, about Nemesis' build and what he's basically designed to counter, which is essentially the Dead Hard to pallets and Dead Hard to windows. But I mean, for those of you who managed to stick around and are willing to hear this out, alright, if we are going to keep Dead Hard, we have to give survivors something that killers also have, and that's cooldowns for actions. See, whenever a killer performs an action or decides to use their power, they suffer usually a half a second to a full second cooldown in switching between using their power and using their M1 ability. Well, survivors can just Dead Hard insta-drop a pallet or vault a window and Dead Hard at the same time, no less. Well, it's time. If you really want to fix Dead Hard and you really want to keep Dead Hard, the only option is apply survivor cooldowns. If a survivor is vaulting a window, they can't use Dead Hard. If a survivor Dead Hards, they can't vault a window immediately after. If a survivor Dead Hards, they can't immediately drop a pallet. They're going to have to make difficult choices, which killers must make every time they decide to use their powers. That's the only way to make Dead Hard fair. In its current state, it is completely unfair, even though it is higher skill than it used to be in the past. But it is still an unfair perk, and there's no arguing that. There's nothing fair about it. I messed up, therefore I'm rewarded by pushing E at the right time. That doesn't really make any sense in any other form of gaming. Anyways, that's gonna do it for me. I hope you all like this discussion, and if you like the content and are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to leave a comment down below if you have any questions or feel like crying about how I said Dead Hard should just be removed altogether. But that's going to do it for me. I'm going to see all of you guys in the next video. Bye.